where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world is not broken into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where words come out of the depths of truth, where the mind is led by thee into ever widening thought and action. Into that heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake. A poem by the Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore was taught to me when I was in my 8th standard by our English teacher for a competition, poem recital competition. I never understood the meaning of those words because as a young boy, all you had to do is to memorize it and repeat it verbatim as was told by your teacher. So I did. But several years down the line, when we were inaugurating the library at the Rajeshwari Memorial Block, it came back to me that this is the heaven of freedom that Rabindranath Tagore prayed for. My father, let my country awake in that freedom, in that heaven of freedom that India was supposed to be, is supposed to be, after the British rule ended. But we do not know whether we have achieved that, at least for everyone. Probably we have achieved that for a few people, a privileged few, I must say, who got this ticket to this heaven of freedom, where education is available, healthcare is available, water, sanitation, basic needs are available to one and all. But I wonder whether this has happened for everyone in India, especially the 50% of India which is women. And so when Nagaratna was talking about this idea in the morning, that women empowerment does not end with education, employment and opportunities. It is also the right to choose God. I think this change in weather, suddenly the weather has changed. So the right to choose to live for God is also a fundamental human right. And it is denied to the women most of the times, because not just because the parents don't want it or people at home don't want it, simply because there are no mechanisms, there is no structure, there is no support system to enable that. So most of the women, when they're young, they're under father's care. When they grow a little more, they are under brother's care. A little more, they are under husband's care. And a little more under their son's care. And maybe grandson's care. And this is how the society has been so long. But when Nagaratna told that for me, my childhood dream of living for God, to reserve myself for God, without giving myself to anybody or anything, was fulfilled only because of a system like this. And that's true women empowerment. I was very touched by that. And that is why I wanted her to say it again. For I feel for it. I feel for it. When Meera wanted to choose God over everything else, she had to undergo untold hardships. When Radha wanted to choose God over everything else, she had to undergo tremendous difficulties. So also Akka Mahadevi, who wanted to choose God over everything else, had to undergo tremendous challenges. That should not be the fate of our girls, our women, our staff. They should have a right, not just the right, but also a dignified life while living for God. Not like Meera begging on the streets, not like Akka Mahadevi without clothes, not like anybody else who suffered because they chose God. But lead a dignified life, a professional life where they can also offer back to the society their skills, their knowledge, their abilities, and improve others' lives as well. So it's not just about living for God, but it's also about living for God in a dignified way, which is what our institutions, our system, our ashrams are providing for the women folk. And this was a very, very subtle but very salient feature of our institutions, which I wanted to bring it to the notice of one and all. I know sometimes we just tend to overlook or tend to miss these very important things that are happening right in front of our eyes. Because we are so busy doing so many things that we don't realize that a heaven of freedom has been created. The dream of Rabindranath Tagore has been fulfilled in whatsoever measure. There are people living without walls. There are people living and speaking from the depth of truth. And everybody is striving for perfection. That was this effort, pursuit of excellence or efficiency to excellence, the workshop. It's about tireless striving, stretching its arms towards perfection. Above all, mind is led by thee. It's not my thought, my idea, your idea. It is the divine will that drives this place. And everybody who aligns it to the divine will, they become excellent instruments, they become perfect. Because they're driven by thee, the mind is led by thee. And what kind of leading? Into ever widening thought and action, not narrow minded approach. I get redeemed, I get moksha, sufficient for me, does good for me. For everybody's sake, they strive. And expanding and embracing the entire humanity, all creation, that is ever widening thought and action. Every day we sit and think, how else can we help more people? What else we can do to make lives of underprivileged, the marginalized, the weaker sections better? What other scheme can we launch? What other idea can we come up with? In what other way we can support more and more people? Ever widening thought and action. And where the mind is led by thee, that is the most important part of perfection. You are driven by the divinity which drives you from within. Not for any other reason, not for professional sake, not for the sake of some achievements, accolades, recognition, rewards, not for the sake of some petty, silly, worldly applause, but to satisfy that divine within and without in all, we work. What a wonderful thought. Rabindranath Tagore to even think like this, that's why he's Rabindranath Tagore. And he tried to create a heaven of freedom in Shantiniketan. I visited that in Bolpur, in West Bengal. I went there. I went to every house that he lived in, that little hamlet of his. It was his vision to create a similar structure, a similar idea, to make his vision come true in that little place. What we know today is Shantiniketan or Ravindra Bharati or whatever the institute it's called. It was his idea. He worked hard. But alas, when he passed on from this world, he had a few regrets, and he acknowledged that he had not succeeded because of whatever limitations within and with the people he had. It is that which caused his vision not to become a reality in its totality. And that is all the more reason why we must check ourselves twice a day, whether we are in alignment with that divine will, because that's when perfection happens. Whatever divine does is perfect. And if we also are able to replicate that, live that, to be able to express that in every thought, word and action, then everything that we think, say or do will be divine. So my whole request to all these young professionals was, try to align yourself to that divine will. Give up your individuality, ego, attachment, self-interest, and all the other paraphernalia of things that we carry with us, the baggage, and surrender to that divine will, and divine will lead you from here. And that is perfection. Everything that you do will be perfect because it is divine. And can we achieve that? Yes, everybody can achieve that. That is all that we are supposed to achieve. Everything else, even if you don't achieve, it's all right. To be able to achieve, to live in perfect harmony, in accordance, in perfect tune with the divine within is the achievement of everything. That drives, that does everything. And that is what Rabindranath Tagore meant when he said, let the divine lead us, our mind be led by thee. Then only expansion, ever widening happens. Thought and action. And he says, let the clear stream of reason not lose its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit. We are creatures of habits, that's what we are known as. As humans, we get habituated, we get very complacent, we become very comfortable in our own little zones. And we do not want to learn, change, transform ourselves. And I tell, of all kinds of laziness and lethargy, spiritual lethargy is the worst. When we choose not to grow anymore and or we think we have grown sufficiently, we are already gods. That's the biggest problem. So our dead habits of being selfish humans should not become an obstacle in our path to divinity. We must give up those individualistic, selfish, self-centered ideas and expand our mind, our hearts to embrace all just as the divine does. This is perfection to me, this is excellence to me, this is efficiency to me, effectiveness, name it, whatever the management jargons you have, everything is in our institution at least is one thing, which is complete surrender to the divine. Therefore, by surrendering, you become the divine himself. Like river surrenders to ocean and becomes the ocean. So surrendering all our individuality, our petty ideas, selfish thoughts, our whatever attachments and self-centered approach into that expansive ocean of divinity, selfless divinity, is perfection. And that is all that needs to be done. Our Vijay Sai sent me a huge list of things that he wanted to conduct for these workshops, all those managerial typical things. All that I am okay, you are okay, I am not okay, you are not okay. All kinds of things. Win, win, lose, lose, you win, I lose. All kinds of jargons. So there are tools, and they help to actually help ourselves find our way through difficult situations in life. But at the end I told him, see, if you teach them that they should become perfect instruments of God by surrendering to God, that's enough for me if you can teach that. And that's perfection to us. When Arjuna surrendered himself to Krishna's will, he became a perfect instrument. Likewise, if each one of you just decides to surrender to the divine, you will become divine in the process. But unfortunately, it's not given to the women folk, I was told, in our societies to surrender to God and become God. There are 100 obstacles on their way. So single woman in a society like this is extremely unsafe. But Nagaratna opened this new dimension of our mission. It was always there, but she brought to my attention that because of this mission, even she can lead a very happy, joyful life of fulfillment, living it for God. And nobody can question that, nobody can come in her way. So this is women empowerment to me, Nagaratna said. And that really made me feel very happy, and I thought this is something that I want to be shared, especially with the girls. Of course, boys too, because the jiva has no gender. The soul has no gender. It is the body that comes with a gender. Every soul aspires to reach the divine. Likewise, all of us, somehow, without our knowledge also, always we are wanting to reach the divine. But things come in our way, internal obstacles and external obstacles. External obstacles are societal structures, which do not allow us to do, our families, our societies, our relations, and whatever she told about the issues. They don't allow us to achieve that. And internally our obstacles are our own ego, our attachments, our desires. They do not allow us to reach divinity. But in this system, it is so easy to do this. Because outside obstacles are not there, unless you create one for yourself and others. And inside obstacles need not be there, if you choose to drop all of it. And so it's so easy for us to reach the divine. This is what this workshop was about, how to realize this opportunity more than anything, how to utilize this opportunity and not squander it away. And I'm so glad that so many of our young boys and girls are taking to this path. They may have 100 options in the world that we live in today, but they choose God over everything else. And I tell them, you have chosen well. Because now Whatever you need will be provided by God. You become God's responsibility. The moment you offer yourself to God, God becomes your provider, protector. And He will do it better than anybody else for you. He'll do it better than your own parents, better than your own friends, better than your spouses, better than your own children, better than your own bosses. He will do it better than all of them for you because He really knows what you truly need. Sometimes we don't know what we really need. And we think our wants are our needs and go about fulfilling them and never are satisfied with it. But God knows what is right for you, when to give, how much to give, and when not to give and what not to give also He knows. That way He saves us the mess that we create for ourselves by getting entangled into unwanted, unnecessary issues and things. Such a wonderful system. And all of them who spoke, all of them have worked elsewhere before in a corporate or a professional environment. And then they have come and joined here and said they know the value of it much more. So their observation was, Swami, we understand the value because we have suffered the consequence of not choosing God or not being able to choose God in the very beginning. But fortunately, we have been provided this opportunity. We could come back to you and do this. So we realize the value, but your boys and girls may not realize because they haven't been exposed to the cruelty and the harshness of the world. They've always been kept like a fetus in the womb, extremely protected and cared for. So they may squander it away, throw it away, waste it away, is their apprehension. I told that our boys and girls are luckier than you because you lived outside, you learned a lot of nonsense and you had to unlearn all of it and had to work very hard to make you unlearn all that. And that wasted 5 out of 10 years. And the next 5 years is what you have learned and you have reached this far. These boys and girls have not learned all that nonsense at all. They can start on the right foot and they can straight away learn everything that they need to learn. Therefore, they can actually overtake you in the spiritual path much faster. Professionally also and spiritually also. Is their fortune, is their privilege. So you are actually lucky. Because you have already been shown the path, somebody has walked the path. You don't have to make a path for yourself. There are people who already have led such lives of fulfillment. And they are examples, living examples. These are not from some history books or from Purana or Shastra or some mythology that I am speaking. These are living examples of people who have given their lives to God and they are so happy. And if you don't believe me, you can go and check on them, check for yourself. This is not some story from mythology. This is real here in front of your eyes. What else do we want to get inspired and motivated to live for God? This is what the workshop was all about, and I was telling them again and again. You are very lucky, you boys who are listening to this workshop, I'm sure, and I hope these speeches will be available to everybody. You can put it up, after suitable edits. Not everything is for everyone's consumption. But whenever they put it up, please listen to these talks. Because these talks were not just shallow, repetitions of some rhetorics in spirituality. These came out of the depths of truth. These came out from the essence of their experience. So 10 years ago, had you heard them, you could almost predict what the talk is going to be like. Shallow. But today when they speak, it's deep. And it is their experience. It's their own knowledge. Not borrowed ideas. So when you listen to them, you feel inspired. Because every word is true. Depths of truth. That is what I enjoyed about this workshop. Generally, it's workshops happen, conferences happen, something or the other keeps happening in the ashram. And a lot of professional people also come. They also have their conferences. And I have to sort of, suffer through many of those. Silently. But when this is about our children, being inspired by our own people, who have not just spoken about it, but they have lived it, at least in the last 10 years, and transformed into the mirrors of divinity. Perfect. 100% fidelity. Complete reflections. No distortions. It gives me such great joy. Have you ever seen, as Narasimhamurthy said, the mirror maker, when he takes a piece of metal, those days metals were mirrors, not like today's glass mirrors with that silver, whatever, coating. There's to be pieces of metal, they have to be polished and polished and polished, and they could not be undulating. They have to be perfectly smooth, and no machines, no measurements, no AI, no computer system, nothing. It's simple perfection. They have whatever the craftsmanship of the mirror maker. So he will polish, and then he will see himself. He won't like it. Keep it. Next day he'll again wake up and polish and level it, and remove all the distortions and deficiencies. And one day that mirror is perfect. That is the joy of that mirror maker. When he looks at himself in the mirror that he has made and sees the perfect reflection, he is overjoyed. So when I look at all of you, I think of how many mirrors and how much of making is left. Polish and giso, roj. Some people are quick, they get ready very fast. I see my reflection, I feel extremely satisfied and confident that I can give this mirror to anybody now. And they will reflect divinity in its entirety, in its totality. Whereas there are mirrors in making in my workshop, and they're still being polished and perfected. But one day they will also become perfect mirrors. This is what I'm looking at. This is what I was talking to them in the morning, to the analogy of a mirror maker and how mirrors are made. Otherwise, you see in jatres and melas and all that, you'll see there is a mirror house. It's called laughing house or something like that. What do? Basically, they put all kinds of mirrors, distorted ones. So you go there, you look fat and old and short, and your tongue suddenly looks bigger, nose looks bigger, and everybody laughs at others, not at themselves. They have fun. Look at my wife, how ugly she looks. She thinks, look at my husband, not worth even marrying. Look at the mirror reflection. And they all have fun. I told, don't make me a laughing stock in your reflections that you produce out of your imperfections. Because people will laugh at me, not at you. You have been taken for granted, this is a bad mirror. But the reflection looks bad and people will laugh at me, like the husbands laugh at their wives and vice versa. I don't want to become a laughing stock by being reflected poorly, badly, distortedly in your lives. You should reflect me perfectly. The way I feel, you should feel. The way I think, you should think. The way I speak, you should speak. The way I do, you should do. Then you are perfect mirrors. And the world will appreciate this perfection, this fidelity. And I will never be laughed at, never be mocked by others, never be made into a joke, because you are perfect. And world will say, look at those boys, look at those girls. They are divine. They are divine. Nothing else to describe them. Just divine. Yes, they are doctors, but they're divine. They're engineers, they're divine. They're accountants, they're divine. Lawyers, they're divine. Administrators, they're divine. They're teachers, they're divine. They are anybody and everybody, but they are divine. That should become our description, because you truly, truly reflect that divinity, and that is excellence, that is perfection. Surrender yourself to the mirror maker, surrender yourself to the divine, and you will become divine. Let the mind be led by thee. That is the prayer of Rabindranath Tagore, that is my effort as well. And let this perfection, that divinity is, tirelessly we should strive for it. Don't give up halfway. And don't be satisfied, I am good enough for God. No, we are not good enough for God till we become God. Only God is good enough for God. Anything is not good enough. So till we reach that stage, keep working. Keep striving, stretching your arm towards perfection. And then one day, that heaven of freedom will happen, within and without. And each one of you will be capable of creating so many such pieces of heavens or earth, in so many countries, so many places, for so many people who are waiting for it, for somebody to do it for them, for they don't know how to do it for themselves. And this is what I am trying to do. This is the essence of our mission. Divinity, as I said, within the inner excellence is to realize the divinity within, an outer excellence to serve everyone selflessly, professionally as well, in everything that we do. So this is the essence of it. I think rains have stopped. I can stop my speech now.